Man, how old is your oldest child?
My oldest is, I think, 31. I have to always do the math on this. Yeah, 31.
31. Okay, so I'm 33 years old, and you've been a father for 31 years. How have you changed? Was there a drastic change from 30 years ago to 31 years ago in the way you thought about life?
Sure, there must have been. I think one of the things that a lot of us, if you think about how much you've changed in the last 10 years, you go, wow, I've changed a lot. And then you ask yourself how much you think you're going to change in the next 10 years. You'd be like, no, I'll be about the same. But in fact, it's never the same. You always will change and go through those. So some of the things I did as a younger parent, I mean, this is a kind of a gross and obvious one. I spanked kids. I would never do that again. I mean, all the data say it just doesn't work. In fact, it makes things worse. So don't do that. I wish I hadn't, The idea about being in competition with your kids. Sometimes I was in competition with my kids. I wish I hadn't done that. Don't do that. That's not a good idea. So there are things that I definitely would change, but other things that I did, maybe more applicable even to the stages that you are now, is where you're just a kind of a narrator to your kid's existence. Now we're walking. Now we're going to the store. This is the store, all that stuff. I think that makes life meaningful. It helps set them in place. Being really scientific about things and just explaining things to kids so they get an idea of how the world works and how it really is. I think I'm glad I did it then, and I don't think I'd change that now. I think I would do the same thing. And I think I'd still be reading Big A, Little A, What Begins with A, and Annie's Alligator AAA. I mean, that isn't going away. I'm going to do all those things. So some things were, I think, I haven't evolved in my thinking on some of those things. I think some of those things were probably the right thing to do.
Okay. So without getting political, what about protecting innocence? That's something that has been coming up in my thoughts recently, and a lot of people that I know. In Texas, obviously, we're a pretty conservative place. We, most of us think that we shouldn't be talking about sex and all the things until at least middle school. What's your thoughts on that?
So I'll tell you what the data say. So I did some look into the data on this because I wanted to know. A lot of things are all over the place, but I will say a couple things. Talking about it in excruciating detail to the point where you feel like it's uncomfortable for you, it's probably a good thing, because comprehensive, fact-based sex education has the following effects. People have fewer kids before they're married. They delay first intercourse with more information, not less. Like, you give them more, you think, oh, I'm going to tempt them into it. No, it's the opposite. They wait longer the more information that they have. And they have fewer sex partners lifetime, and they have fewer sexually transmitted infections. That's a lot of good. So as a father, I decided I needed to be pretty explicit, and really explain what's going on. And part of that also is, I'm religious also. So I don't want my kids to have not just sexual experiences that they would find to be disturbing, though that's a good thing, or too early, though that's a good thing. But I want them to wait until marriage for the majority of their sexual experiences, their partner's sexual experiences, certainly. So since I want that for my kids, I want them to not have things like curiosity, or misinformation drive them to do something that is that I don't want as a religious person. I think if you think about somebody at this 2.5-year-old stage, there's not much that's going to be there, but to the point where if you would explain what an egg is, and a chicken, then you're in the place where if you explain things using words that would maybe embarrass them if they were 12, it's not going to embarrass them when they're kids. They're going to be like, okay. whatever. I mean, it's just another thing about the world. I think you'll find it easier the earlier you start on something like sex education and the science of it, while you can. And the earlier you do, the better it is. Don't set up one big talk. Here's the talk. Just keep it as part of your daily life, little tiny things. And when they get old enough that they can run away, then you have these conversations in the car and they can't get out.
Okay. Yes, I love where that. So the more knowledge, the better. It's almost like you're giving them the content to process themselves, and they will process it most of the time, is what you're saying.
Oh yeah, and by the way, they're gonna find out. They're just gonna not find out from you. They're gonna find out from porn and from their friends, and neither of those is usually all that good of sex education.
Sure. Just what do you think is the age? I know it's going to differ between children because they, grow at different rates, but where should you start?
Before that you think you should. So whatever part makes you feel uncomfortable, that's about the right time to be talking about things like this. So, I mean, with a 2.5-year-old, you're not going to be talking about much other than, don't do that here, like that's not polite, that sort of level. But as I get older, again, just keep leading the ball. Do it before that you think that you should do it. If nothing else, you're going to be protecting them from somebody who can exploit them elsewhere. If they don't know that I shouldn't be touched here, that's private, then, and they don't know the words to use, they just are calling it their pee-pee place or something like that, then they won't have the words to tell you that what this person did is not right. They'll come to you right away once they kind of know that they should. You got to prepare them before that happens, not after the fact. So I'd say earlier than you want to. So does it feel uncomfortable? You're probably in the right spot then, unfortunately. That's just how it is.
Yeah. A lot of good things are uncomfortable,
That is true.
Yep. Okay. So, here's another one. I've heard lots of talk about, declining birth rates and how that's going to affect society in the next 20, 30, 40 years. Is that an issue that we should be thinking about?
So now I'm putting on a kind of an economist hat when I say something like this. I mean, I have 7 kids. You see where I've kind of come down on the issue. I think that people can learn a lot from their kids, and it's good and right to raise kids. So that's what I think should happen. When I put the economist hat on, I see this is nothing this is in the book. So I'm just kind of saying what I think from an economics perspective. You need a lot of people that are productive workers to pay for people who are in end of life. That is just math. There's no two ways about it. We used to have about 5.5 productive workers for every retiree. We are down to, I believe 2.5, and we'll be down to 2 within about 5 years. So that says that you need to get productive workers in fast. And that also means, and we aren't going to have enough sex to have that happen. It is just not going to happen. So that means if you don't want to have that kind of collapse, that it is going to be, and is already, a global fight for the best, most productive workers there are from other countries. And that is just the way it is. You don't like it? Well, sign up for a different universe.